Understood. I'll write section 1 as a tightly focused, 1,600-word narrative that introduces Captain Elias Vance sets up the rescue event and plants the seeds for the later payoff, with no fluff or extraneous world building. It will feel complete in itself while making the reader want to continue. The Resolute's bridge hummed with the low, steady vibration of her engines, the sound Captain Elias Vance had long since come to associate with the rhythm of deep space travel. Beyond the wide, curved viewport, the Orion Rift spread like a vast black wound across the galaxy, its swirling eddies of dust and gravitational distortions catching faint starlight. The rift was a place most human ships skirted, but the Resolute had been patrolling its edge for days now, part of an extended border sweep. Vance stood at the command rail, hands clasped behind his back, his gaze fixed on the scatter of sensor readings across the forward display. His first officer, Commander Loran Briggs, leaned toward the console, brow furrowed. "Unscheduled contact," Briggs said. "Bearing 271, low drift velocity. Signatures, odd." Vance shifted his stance. "Odd how?" "Composite hull materials, high-density plating, but the power output's faint. Like it's running on emergency reserves." Briggs' eyes flicked up to him. "Definitely not human. Dranth, maybe." The word carried weight. The Dranth were known in every fleet briefing as unpredictable, fiercely territorial, and unlikely to greet human ships with anything warmer than suspicion. Encounters were rare, often tense, and sometimes bloody. Vance took a step toward the tactical station. Range: 6,000 clicks and closing. Reading significant structural damage, multiple hull breaches. Briggs glanced sideways. "If it is a Dranth vessel, we shouldn't get closer. Command protocols are clear: avoid engagement, especially in rift territory." Vance's eyes narrowed as a flicker of static crossed the long-range comms band. "Any transmissions?" "Barely," the comms officer replied. "It's weak, degraded. Automated distress ping. Dranth frequency, but with human standard emergency code embedded." Vance stared at the display for a long moment. "Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with a wavering, static-laced tone. Beneath the noise, a voice chittered in the Dranth tongue, sharp clicks and guttural consonants, urgent but fading. Briggs straightened. "Captain, we're in violation of Fleet Directive 12 if we cross into Dranth distress range without diplomatic clearance. It's their territory. We don't intervene, we don't risk escalation." Vance kept his eyes on the viewport. A dying ship spun slowly in the rift's faint light, its hull scored and blackened. He imagined the crew inside, choking on thin air, watching their systems fail. It would take hours for any Dranth patrol to reach them. They didn't have hours. He turned to Briggs. "We have the capacity to help. That's reason enough. Sir, I strongly advise. Alert medical. Ready the docking teams." His tone left no space for argument. The Resolute altered course, her inertial dampeners humming as she angled toward the drifting vessel. The Dranth ship was larger than a human corvette but smaller than a frigate, its design bristling with sharp, angular protrusions. Jagged rents in its hull exposed the skeletal framework beneath. The faint shimmer of a failing shield bubble sparked and died against the darkness. As the gap closed, the damage became grotesquely clear: scorched plating, slagged bulkheads, sections of armor peeled back like torn flesh. Life support readings were erratic, pockets of breathable atmosphere trapped behind crumbling barriers. Docking clamps extended with a metallic hiss. The Resolute latched onto the Dranth vessel's starboard side with a jolt. Vance was already moving, helmet under one arm as he strode toward the airlock. Briggs caught up with him. "Sir, you're leading the boarding? That's necessary. Whoever's alive in there needs to see a human face willing to stand with them." Vance sealed his helmet, the HUD flickering to life. "You have the bridge, Commander." The airlock cycled with a hiss, and the boarding hatch slid open to reveal the darkness beyond. Emergency lights guttered along the Dranth corridor, bathing everything in a pulsing crimson glow. The air was thin, metallic with the tang of burnt wiring. Shards of plating and shattered equipment floated in the low gravity. Two security officers followed close as Vance moved forward, mag boots clamping softly against the deck. The sound of distant groaning metal echoed through the hull. A muffled, rhythmic clicking alien speech carried faintly from deeper inside. They found the first survivor slumped against a bulkhead, his chitinous exoskeleton cracked and scorched. The Dranth warrior's black eyes rolled toward them. One of Vance's men knelt, administering an emergency sealant patch to a breach in the alien's carapace. The Drantha's gaze locked on Vance, a flash of recognition, or perhaps disbelief, passing through it. Injured, but stable, the medic reported. Move him to the airlock, Vance ordered. Get him aboard the Resolute. They pressed deeper into the wreck, following the failing life signs indicated on Vance's display. Fires flickered in ruptured compartments, licking at twisted struts. Twice they had to force jammed bulkheads open, each groaning protest threatening to collapse the corridor entirely. The bridge of the Dranth vessel was a ruin. Panels hung sparking from their housings, the forward viewport a web of fractures sealed only by a flickering containment field. Amid the wreckage, one figure remained upright, taller than the others, his armor scarred but intact. His right arm hung limp, but his left hand gripped the railing with unshakable will. Vance recognized him instantly from fleet intelligence briefings, Commander K.A. a decorated Dranth officer from a border defense wing. His compound eyes fixed on Vance as he approached. K.A.'s mandibles flexed. "Human, why are you here?" "To get you out," Vance said, crossing the deck toward him. K.A.'s tone hardened. "This is Dranth space. Your presence is violation. And letting you die is not an option," Vance replied evenly. A shudder ran through the hull. Warning icons flared on Vance's HUD, structural collapse imminent. He stepped forward, gripping K.A.'s uninjured arm and pulling it over his own shoulder. "I can walk," K.A. protested. "Not fast enough. Move." Debris rained from the overhead as they retraced their path, the sound of distant buckling metal growing louder. Twice Vance had to shove K.A. through narrowing gaps before the corridors sealed behind them in clouds of dust and sparks. The Resolute's airlock cycled open just as a thunderous crack split the Dranth vessel. The docking clamps disengaged, pulling them clear moments before the ship's aft section tore free, venting a cloud of debris into the rift. Medical crews swarmed the survivors as they stepped through. K.A. was guided onto a stretcher, his multifaceted eyes still locked on Vance. "You risked much," he said in halting human speech. "For what?" "Because I could," Vance replied. K.A.'s mandibles shifted in what might have been a Dranth smile, though it was edged with something sharper. "The Dranth do not forget debts, Captain Vance. One day, perhaps, I will repay." Vance nodded once. "Live long enough to try." Hours later, with the Dranth survivors stabilized and their damaged ship left adrift for later recovery, Vance stood alone in his ready room. The reprimand from Fleet Command arrived swiftly, citing breach of protocol and unauthorized incursion into alien territory. The text was cold, clinical, stripped of any acknowledgement of the lives saved. He deleted the message without responding. Out beyond the viewport, the Orion Rift swirled in silent indifference, its shadows hiding the endless unknown. Somewhere within those shadows, Vance knew, the Dranth would carry this day in their memory not as a treaty, not as a bargain, but as a seed. And seeds, given enough time, had a way of growing into something far larger than anyone could predict. He didn't know then how much that seed would matter, or how far its roots would reach. But as the stars drifted past and the hum of the Resolute's engines filled the quiet, he felt the certainty that this act, however small it seemed, would not vanish into the void. And that, he thought, was enough. Understood. Here's section 2 at up to 1,600 words, continuing seamlessly from the first section. It will jump 2 decades forward, put humanity in crisis, and end with a decisive hook leading into the next part. 2 decades had stripped the shine from Elias Vance's hair and deepened the lines at the corners of his eyes, but they had not diminished the way he carried himself. He stood in the tactical chamber of the Earth Defense Council, his dark uniform crisp, his expression calm despite the heated voices that ricocheted around the circular room. The holographic map at the chamber's center glowed with red markers spreading across human-claimed sectors like a slow infection. Each mark represented a colony lost, a fleet destroyed, a foothold abandoned. The Vor Dominion had come without warning, striking from beyond mapped borders with precision and overwhelming force. Every engagement had ended in human retreat. What began as an isolated clash now looked like the opening moves of extinction. Reports of massacred settlements filtered in daily. The Dominion's demands were simple: unconditional surrender, dismantling of all military forces, and permanent withdrawal to the Sol system. Anything less meant eradication. Vance listened as planetary governors, fleet admirals, and civilian ministers traded accusations. One called for immediate negotiation, another insisted humanity could still win with proper coordination, and a third demanded the council abandon the outer colonies entirely. Vance let the noise play out before speaking. "Every day we hesitate, they take another system," he said, his voice cutting through the room. "Every day we argue, they slaughter more civilians. This isn't a border dispute. It's a purge." Councillor Harrin, a narrow-faced politician from Mars, leaned forward. "And what would you have us do, Admiral? Throw what's left of our fleets into a battle we can't win? That's suicide." "It's survival," Vance replied. "But not if we fight alone." Laughter, bitter and short, came from another corner. "We have no allies. None worth the name. Humanity has burned too many bridges expanding where it had no business going." The words rang true in a way Vance couldn't deny. The expansion years had been ruthless, driven by ambition and need. Treaties had been strained, trust eroded. Most neighboring civilizations now kept humanity at arm's length, content to watch from the sidelines as the Vor dismantled them. Vance stepped toward the glowing map. His finger traced a path toward a dark swath of unmarked space. "Not all bridges are burned." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Harrin narrowed his eyes. "You're talking about the Dranth. They've been silent for 20 years. They've been rebuilding," Vance said. "Recovering from their own civil war. I've read the intelligence reports, they've stabilized, and their fleets are stronger than before." "Assuming they'd even answer a human transmission," Harrin said. "Why would they? We've never had formal alliance. They owe us nothing." Vance's gaze held steady. "One of them owes me." That drew a flicker of recognition from some of the older council members. Most had heard the story in fragments: an old, unauthorized rescue on the edge of the Orion Rift, a diplomatic reprimand quietly filed away. Few remembered the name of the Dranth commander saved that day. Vance did. "Commander Kareth," Vance said, his voice quieter now, but no less certain. "If he's alive, he's not the sort to forget." The chamber fell into a tense silence. No one disputed the Dranth reputation for honoring debts, but the thought of hinging humanity's fate on a single, decades-old act of goodwill struck many as desperate. A retired admiral finally spoke. "And if they refuse? We waste precious time and resources trying to contact a people who may not even care we exist." Vance looked at the cluster of red markers blooming toward Earth's orbit. "If they refuse, we die exactly as we will without them. The difference is, we'll have tried." Later, aboard the Resolute refitted and recommissioned for war, Vance walked the length of the bridge, reading status reports from what remained of his fleet. 27 ships, all scarred from the running battles of the last month, limped between dockyards and patrol routes. The Vor had broken the first fleet at Mero Station, annihilated the second at the Rimward Gap, and driven the fourth into retreat near Beta Gravis. Vance's third expeditionary fleet was the only one still intact, and even that was a relative term. Briggs, older and broader now, still served at his side. He handed Vance a datapad. "Final positions confirmed. We can hold the Vor back for 2, maybe 3 days if they hit us with a full assault." "Enough time to send the message," Vance said. Briggs frowned. "Sir, I've never questioned your calls. Not once. But I have to say this, putting our survival on a Dranth promise is a long shot. We need contingency plans that don't rely on miracles." "We have them," Vance said. "But they end with Earth burning." Briggs didn't answer immediately. He knew the truth when he heard it. Vance stepped to the comm station. Prepare a long-range transmission. Maximum burst strength, Dranth encryption overlay, routed through deep space relays. The comms officer nodded and began tapping commands. Message contents. Vance considered the words carefully. They would be his first to Ka-Reth in over 2 decades, and perhaps his last. Begin, he said. To Commander Ka-Reth of the Dranth, if you live, you will remember me. Years ago, on the edge of the Orion Rift, I brought you from the wreck of your ship. I asked nothing in return. Now I ask this, answer the call. Humanity stands at the edge of extinction, and we need allies. If there is any debt between us, I claim it now. The officer glanced up. Transmission ready. Send it, Vance ordered. The message burst away into the void, carried on threads of light and hope across sectors where Vor war fleets already prowled. Once sent, there was nothing more to do but wait. In the days that followed, the fleet held position along the defensive perimeter of the Sol system. Vor scouts tested the line, probing with quick strikes before retreating to rejoin the main force. Vance kept the ships mobile, rotating damaged vessels out of the front to keep them in the fight as long as possible. Sleep came in short stretches, interrupted by status updates and tactical briefings. Between engagements, he found himself staring at the viewport, wondering what Ka-Reth had become. 20 years was a long time for any man, human or Dranth. Perhaps he had risen through their ranks, perhaps he had fallen in some border war, perhaps he was nothing more than a name in their archives. The Dranth were not sentimental. They valued strength, loyalty, and honor in equal measure, but they were not known for nostalgia. By the 5th day, no reply had come. Vor activity intensified, with larger formations massing just beyond sensor range. Fleet intelligence predicted a full assault within 48 hours. Briggs approached him quietly on the bridge. We can still fall back to Titan and regroup. By another week, maybe 2. Vance shook his head. They'll just keep coming. Every retreat costs lives. Every delay gives them ground. Then we fight here, Briggs said. Vance didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the starfield, where enemy signatures burned like embers waiting for the wind to rise. The silence from Dranth space weighed heavier than the thought of battle. He had gambled on a memory, and the galaxy was reminding him how little such things mattered when measured against the cold logic of war. When the Vor fleet appeared on sensors the next morning, it was like a wall materializing from the darkness, dozens of warships in perfect formation, their hulls bristling with weapon arrays that glinted in the light of Sol. They moved without hesitation, cutting across the void toward the human line. Vance stood at the center of the bridge, issuing orders with steady precision. Shields flared to full power. Weapons charged. Fighters launched in swarms from carrier bays. The comms channels filled with the clipped voices of ship captains acknowledging their orders. No one mentioned the message to the Dranth anymore. It was a silent absence, a void in the conversation that everyone felt but no one dared to fill. As the Vor closed to weapons range, the deck shuddered with the first salvo. Energy bolts streaked past the viewport, dazzling and deadly. The human fleet returned fire, their formations tightening under the onslaught. Vance's jaw tightened. The Dranth had not come. Humanity would face the Dominion alone. But then, just as the tactical displays painted the field in hostile red, a new contact appeared at the far edge of sensor range. Then another. Then dozens more. The readings spiked, flooding the screen with signatures too large, too numerous to be Vor. The comms officer's voice cracked with disbelief. "Admiral, we're detecting mass hyperspace re-entry, vectoring straight toward us. Configuration matches. Dranth warships." Vance didn't move, didn't speak, but his heart struck once, hard in his chest. The officer turned in his chair, eyes wide. "Sir, they're coming in fast. Hundreds of them." The Vor formation faltered for the first time, adjusting to account for the sudden influx of unknowns on their flank. Vance drew a breath, slow and steady. "Maintain formation. Hold fire until we know who they're aiming at." But deep inside, he already knew. Understood. Here's section 3 written as a tense, tightly woven continuation from section 2, with emphasis on character presence, suspense, and pacing toward the climactic fleet arrival in Section 4. The bridge of the Resolute was a study in controlled chaos. Officers moved quickly between stations, voices clipped, movements sharp. Every display glowed with the shapes of Vor ships pressing in from the void, their formation disciplined and unyielding. The human fleet held its line, a fragile wall between the Dominion and Earth. Vance stood at the command rail, eyes on the tactical hologram. The Dranth signatures still streaked toward the engagement zone, but their comm channels remained silent. No declarations of intent, no confirmation of allegiance. The absence gnawed at him more than the Vor's slow advance. In this silence, anything was possible. "Range to Vor lead elements?" Vance asked. 40,000 clicks, the tactical officer replied. "Closing fast." Briggs leaned closer, voice low. "We still don't know what the Dranth intend. If they side with the Vor." "They won't," Vance said without looking at him. "You're certain?" "I'm certain enough to stand here," Vance replied. The Dranth ships grew larger on the display, their formations shifting like a living organism. They were sleek and angular, hulls marked with the jagged insignia of their warclans. Their velocity was higher than any Vor ship could match, closing the distance with alarming speed. The Vor fleet, sensing the new arrivals, began to adjust, their lines bending away from a straight approach to guard their exposed flank. The first exchange of fire came without ceremony. Blue-white lances from human heavy cruisers stabbed into the dark, striking the Vor vanguard and blooming against their shields in bursts of light. The Vor returned fire with precision, their crimson beams slicing through the blackness, hammering the lead human frigates. One ship Aegis Dawn took a direct hit to its reactor housing, spinning out of formation as its lights went dark. Vance gave no outward reaction. "Pull the Dawn's escort back. Fill the gap with Blackstar and Saber Star. Keep the line tight." Orders echoed through the comm net. The human fleet shifted, formations knitting together around the missing frigate like a wound closing. On the far side of the engagement zone, the Dranth fleet reached the periphery of combat range. Still, no word from Ka-Reth. Their ships loomed in perfect battle lines, weapons primed. The comms officer glanced back. "Sir, Dranth channels are active, but encrypted." "Try again," Vance said. "Direct hail, Dranth command vessel. Identify us and request immediate contact." Static filled the channel, a wash of digital distortion. Then it cleared, and a voice broke through, deep, resonant, the Dranth consonants clipped with precision. "Admiral Vance," Ka-Reth said. For the first time in hours, something loosened in Vance's chest. "High Marshal," he replied. "You cut it close." "I arrive when my warclans are ready to kill," Ka-Reth said. "And we are ready." The line went dead, but the Dranth ships moved. Without hesitation, they plunged toward the Vor flank, their forward batteries lighting the void with incandescent fury. The Vor reacted instantly, but the Dranth advance was like a blade through cloth, slicing into their ranks, scattering their precision formations into knots of chaotic resistance. Human captains began calling in over the fleet channel, voices edged with something Vance had not heard since the war began: hope. "Sir, the Dranth are pushing them right into our firing arcs." Vance gave the order without delay. "Concentrate fire on their retreat corridors. Box them in." The void erupted. Human and Dranth volleys interlocked, each strike timed to drive the Vor deeper into the kill zones. Ships burst apart in clouds of flame and vapor, their remains tumbling through the darkness. On the Resolute's bridge, Vance moved between stations, adjusting orders, tracking the shifting tide. Briggs kept the reserve squadrons in motion, intercepting any Vor ships that tried to break away. The Dranth fought with ruthless precision, their movements honed by years of internal war. Even in victory's shadow, the cost was high. 2 more human ships were lost in the melee, their crews gone in moments. Vor weapons cut deep when they struck, and their commanders fought to the last. Ka-Reth's flagship, a massive spear-shaped dreadnought, cut across the battlespace to come alongside the Resolute. The comms link opened again, Ka-Reth's voice like stone grinding against steel. "Admiral, the Vor commander's ship remains intact. Take it, and their line will break." Vance nodded once. We'll board together. In minutes, the Resolute and Kaeretha's dreadnought were driving hard toward the Vor flagship, their shields flaring under the concentrated fire. Strike craft from both fleets harried the enemy's escorts, tearing open a gap in their defenses. The Vor flagship loomed ahead, its hull black and gleaming, studded with weapon emplacements. Grappling beams locked on, dragging the ships into boarding range. Vance stepped into the assault bay, armored and armed, his rifle magnet-locked to his chest plate. Kaereth was already there, towering and imposing, his chitin plates glinting under the harsh lights. The Dranth warriors behind him clicked their mandibles in unison, a low, rhythmic sound that carried the weight of ceremony. "Once, you carried me from fire," Kaereth said. "Now, I carry you to it." Vance met his gaze. "Let's finish this." The boarding clamps struck with a dull, resonant thud. The hatch blew open into smoke and chaos, and they plunged forward into the heart of the enemy ship. Under the crushing silence of space, the bridge of the Vanguard was tense enough to feel like glass under strain. Rourke stood at the viewport, his reflection faintly overlaying the shimmering arc of the enemy fleet. Hundreds of vessels hung in formation, their hulls shaped like blades pointed toward the colony world below. Each one was big enough to flatten a city. The comms console hummed with encrypted chatter, but Rourke's focus was locked on the flagship at the center, the one that had haunted his nightmares for years. Beside him, Arven's fingers tightened on the tactical rail. The alien's sharp profile was calm, but his tail lashed in slow, deliberate sweeps that betrayed his readiness for violence. He had not forgotten the day they'd met, when Rourke had dragged him out of the wreckage of his own vessel against orders. This was the kind of moment that made debts matter. "Their drives are still cold," Arven said quietly. "They're waiting for something." Rourke's jaw flexed. "They're waiting for us to break." He turned sharply. "Status on reinforcements." "Still inbound," came the reply from Ensign Hale. His voice carried the strain of someone running out of time. 56 minutes, maybe more if the gravity wells deepen. 56 minutes. The enemy could carve through the colony in 20. That left one choice: stall them until the fleet arrived. Or die trying. "Arven," Rourke said, lowering his voice, "you ever hear of bluffing at this scale?" Arven's eyes narrowed, the silver in them catching the light. "Against the Karth Dominion? No one bluffs them. They don't understand the concept." "Good," Rourke said, a dangerous grin cutting across his face. "That means they won't see it coming." He signaled Hale to open a channel to the Dominion flagship. Static rippled through the bridge, followed by the deep, distorted voice of the enemy commander. "Human vessel. You are surrounded. Lower your shields and surrender the colony. You will be permitted to leave with your lives." Rourke stepped forward, voice steady. "This colony is under the protection of the Terran Confederacy. And if you so much as warm your weapons, every gun in our arsenal will burn your fleet from the stars." There was a pause, a calculated silence. The Dominion commander finally replied, his voice a slow drawl. "We detect no additional forces in the system." "That's because you're looking in the wrong place," Rourke said. He cut the transmission before the commander could respond. Arven stared at him. "And if they call your bluff?" "They won't have time to." The next minutes were a blur of controlled chaos. Rourke ordered decoy drones deployed in high orbit, broadcasting false transponder codes to mimic the presence of heavy warships. Holographic distortion fields shimmered to life, creating the illusion of an entire strike group hidden among the asteroid belt. The Dominion ships shifted uneasily. They didn't retreat, but their formation spread wider, adjusting for the supposed threat. Every second they hesitated was another heartbeat closer to reinforcement. But hesitation turned to aggression without warning. The Dominion flagship surged forward, its weapons glowing with the cold blue of charged plasma. The fleet followed, moving as one. "Hale, signal every defense platform to fire at will," Rourke barked. The void lit up as the colony's automated cannons roared to life. Energy beams cut through the dark, smashing against Dominion shields. The enemy's advance slowed, but only slightly. "They're still coming," Arven growled. Rourke slammed his fist against the command rail. "Then we take the fight to them." The Vanguard's engines roared, propelling the ship forward in a headlong charge. Enemy fire streaked past, rattling the hull, but Rourke kept the nose pointed directly at the Dominion flagship. The closer they got, the narrower the firing angles became, forcing the enemy to risk hitting their own ships. Arvin manned the forward weapons, his precision brutal. Dominion interceptors swarmed them, but the Vanguard's turrets tore through the smaller craft. The flagship loomed ahead, its hull bristling with weapon mounts and shield emitters. At the last moment, Rourke ordered a hard roll to port. A missile barrage screamed from their launchers, slamming into the flagship's flank and overloading its lateral shields. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface. "Now!" Rourke shouted. Arvin's shot was perfect, a focused lance of plasma that punched straight into the flagship's reactor housing. The blast lit the void like a second sun. The enemy fleet faltered, their command structure momentarily shattered. And then, through the chaos, came the signal Rourke had been praying for. Multiple warp signatures flared at the edge of the system. Reinforcements. One by one, massive Terran warships emerged from the folds of space, their hulls gleaming with battle markings from dozens of campaigns. But they weren't alone. Alongside them flew ships of alien make, sleek Yaren cruisers, bulky Drevik destroyers, and even a few Skari raiders. Arvin stared in disbelief. "That's every major fleet in the sector." Rourke's voice was low, almost reverent. "Years ago, I saved one life in the middle of nowhere. Looks like the universe decided to return the favor." The combined fleet swept forward in a wall of fire and steel, smashing into the Dominion formation. The battle became a maelstrom of destruction, with Allied ships tearing through enemy lines in coordinated strikes. On the Vanguard's bridge, Rourke kept his eyes locked on the fight, his voice steady as he issued orders. But beneath it all, a quiet satisfaction burned in his chest. This was more than survival. This was proof that bonds forged in desperation could shape the fate of worlds. The Dominion broke before the onslaught, their retreat swift and chaotic. As the last enemy ships fled into the darkness, the comms lit with messages of victory and gratitude. Rourke leaned on the railing, the weight of exhaustion finally settling in. Arvin moved to stand beside him, his expression unreadable. "You risked everything," Arvin said quietly. Rourke glanced at him, a faint smile playing at his lips. "That's the thing about help, Arvin. You never know how far it'll go. But when it comes back to you, it's worth every damn risk." The stars outside seemed just a little brighter. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in years, Rourke felt something dangerously close to hope.